Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thinking Thursday. This is a program of the Kalispell Chamber of Commerce. My name is Jen Kronk, and I'm the Administrative Services Manager. We put on this program almost every month. It is a feature of our chamber where we're able to have timely topics that we know are helpful and informative for our members and the business community, and where we are able to feature the expertise of one of our member businesses to help all of us grow our businesses. This month's topic, connect and improve the productivity of your remote office and workforce, could not be, of course, more timely, as so many of us have worked from home, still working from home, had colleagues working from home, back and forth here in 2020. And I think for many of us, when we went to working from home, it was maybe a little bit of a scramble in trying to figure out what are the right tech tools to do that, so that we're not putting things on thumb drives and sending 240 emails to each other. So we thought today's topic would really be helpful for so many of us in trying to figure out better ways to access our information, share our business information, and work with our colleagues, manage our teams with the technology that's out there. And we have Steve Hodgson with Univision, who's going to be able to provide us with all of this awesome knowledge. A couple of quick things. We are recording today's presentation. We'll have it up on the Kalispell Chamber YouTube channel for you to view here in another day or two, so that way you can revisit it or share it with others that you think might be helpful for. We'll share the slides after, so you don't have to take quite as many notes. We'll have those slides for you. We're going to be doing some interactive polling. With those polls, what that'll enable you to do is we'll ask some questions. You'll be able to respond. It is all anonymous, and we'll share those results in live time so we can see kind of where everybody's sitting or feeling with some different items. And then lastly, Q&A. So with our webinar, you'll have the opportunity to ask Steve some questions. If you look at the bottom of your screen, it's probably going to be on the bottom, could be on the top, but there's a Q&A feature. If you type in your questions right there in the Q&A, Steve and I'll see those, and we'll be able to get to those here toward the end of the presentation. And without further ado, I would love to turn this over to Steve to share his knowledge and expertise and help us all learn how to navigate 2020 and beyond. Take it away, Steve.
Thanks, Jen. I hope everybody can see the screen. My name is Steve Hodgson. I'm an account manager and business development rep for Univision Computers. A little bit about Univision. Univision has been around for 30 years. We were started in Missoula and still run by the same folks. That was in 1989. We are an IT services firm, and that has obviously evolved over the years from early on being associated with accounting, software, and programming, to now we're really focused on this networking and remote environment stuff that is so prominent. We have had an office in the Kalispell area for 5 years, so we're in Evergreen, and we're actually looking to expand, and we've got 3 employees there that are full-time. So that's a little bit about us, and I just wanted to, on the topic here, of the remote office and workforce, do the first poll, and Jen will put that up. Is how many of you are working remotely right now? As you can see, I'm working in the office today, but I spend most of my time at my house at this point. So just kind of wanted to get a sense for how many folks are doing that now. If you can let us know, and then we'll see the results.
I think Steve might be having some challenges with his connectivity here for a moment. Oh, there we go. Great.
Yep. One sec. All right. So looks like about 50-50. Apologies there. So obviously that's where everyone is. And let's just cut to the chase, because, you know, what we want to do now is help you folks with your productivity with the remote office and kind of get over these hurdles that everybody's experiencing. So want to show you, you know, in brief, obviously we can't show all the detail, but in brief, it's like, how are you sharing information easily and reducing your expenses by doing so? Now, in the past, to do this kind of remote work and remote sharing, you really needed to have all sorts of VPNs connected to your server, and everybody had to have the right kind of access. And that has really changed. And in many ways, it's a lot easier now. You know, this pandemic and this global situation that we're in has really just accelerated the drive for remote work. And all of these tools, we found out, were actually all available to us already. And many of you are already using them and probably already have the licensing to be doing more things than you know. So again, that's going to be, you know, sharing information and then reducing tool confusion. So having all these different platforms that you're using for messaging and for sharing files and for collaborating. And so you've got these things that are probably all sorts of disparate tools. And what you can do now is really get everything on a single platform under a single pane of glass that's going to allow this kind of information sharing and collaboration to be so much easier. And as you know, I think this is really just setting the groundwork for as we move into the future, that we're not, you know, as the pandemic recedes, you know, we're all very hopeful of that, that this is going to be the, I mean, I hate to say the new normal, we were all saying that 6 months ago, but you're going to see this environment, this remote workforce environment really continue because it's so easy to do. And folks, you know, it's going to make it easier to hire talent, you know, if you need to hire somebody from far away. But that also increases some challenge, you know, brings in some new challenges of how do you manage your remote employees. And basically there are some really easy tools that can help you do that. So again, you know, that's where Univision's moving. That's where it seems like the technology world in Montana and everywhere is really moving. And so much of it can be done in the 365 Microsoft environment. And so we have really been focusing heavily on that 365 environment to, again, remote and easy access to information, reducing the expense of on-premise hardware, and all those hurdles that it takes to manage that on-premise hardware if you have folks remotely accessing all of that information. And then again, reducing the noise, paring down the tools that you have to use, that you have to train on, that you have to get your employees using and deployed to them, to really a bare minimum, so that you can really focus on your work and getting the best return on your investment for your employees and all the software that you're using. So with that, as I said, you know, 365 is really a place. This is Microsoft 365 platform we're going to be talking mostly about today, because it's the place where you can get all of this in the single spot and get the best return on your investment for really affordable, pretty incredible pricing. So I was going to ask, you know, the second poll question to just get you guys thinking about this a little bit. Like, how many of you are using some form of 365? I'll have Jen put that up, and we'll just give it a sec. If you're using any 365 in your business right now, say yes. And if you don't know, definitely want to know that as well. And then once we get that, and I'll tell you a little bit about 365 while you answer. So in the past, you've used Microsoft Office products. I would imagine that 100% of the people here have used Word or Excel or PowerPoint, at least one of those three at some point in your career, in school, wherever you, so yeah, so it looks like, you know, 50%, and then the rest are no or I don't know. So what 365 is it's the Office tools that you were used to. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, some of the other stuff like Publisher, you may have touched a bit. Now that all came in a box pack and you loaded it onto your desktop and you had one copy of it. And when you got a new computer, you either had to pull it off the old computer, that licensing, and put it onto the new computer, or you um, or you had to buy another copy of it for $250 or $300 for your business. What 365 does is bundle all of that stuff for a monthly fee, monthly cost, and then or an annual. Um, and then it also adds cloud services. So that is stuff that you can keep information on remote servers, basically in Microsoft data centers in the cloud. And it bundles all of that and makes sure that you're always using the latest version of the software. But 365 really needs to be understood as so much more than just Word and Excel. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into with this slide, is just give you some basics. This is stuff that Univision specializes in and that we can come back to in deeper discussion after this. If you want to reach out to us, obviously we'll have our contact information available. But so now 365 includes, as we said, the applications, but it also includes cloud services like cloud hosted email, and then file sharing in the form of OneDrive and SharePoint. That's cloud hosted file sharing. You get up to 1 terabyte of storage with each license for OneDrive. And SharePoint is a way to basically create a file share for your organization, and you can even share those files outside of the organization, password protect them with permissions. And then Teams, which I'm going to get into a little bit, which is a place to basically have all of your collaboration in one place for your business. So I'm not going to go into great depth about the licensing. If you've dealt with 365, you probably know it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to go over a few of the basic layers. For $5 a month, you get a business basic license. It used to be called Business Essentials. This gives you a cloud hosted email box, access to Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And then you get web versions of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So that's, think of if you've used Google Sheets or Google Docs, and then, you know, the equivalent there, OneDrive would be like Dropbox or G Suite for that. You get all of that, but you get the web versions of Word and Excel, so you can't have it on your computer. These are great for employees who are not using a computer all of the time, but do need access to this information and may need to edit a document once in a while or get into an Excel spreadsheet, but you don't need the full Office suite on their computer. And it still gives them access to Teams, which we'll talk about more in a bit. The next step up is really, for most people, Business Standard. Used to be called Business Premium. This is everything I talked about above, but you're also going to get all of the applications on your computer. So this is for your frontline employees, folks who are in front of a computer most of the time, who need the full Office applications. They need the full functionality of Excel, of Word, PowerPoint Publisher, and there's a few other programs that come along. And then, of course, you get the cloud hosted email box. And then the next step up is Business Premium. This is the $20 a month license, and everything above that we've talked about. It also includes the advanced threat protection, which is real-time spam filtering and email security, and Intune. And Intune is a really cool feature for folks with a lot of mobile employees. And if you have mobile applications that you use in your workforce, Intune is a way of managing that and making sure that your data is protected and that you can deploy things rapidly to many people. So we can move on from that. I think that covers kind of everything I wanted to say about the licensing. Oh, there's one more thing. With 365, one of the big benefits is you can get this on 5 different devices. So that's really important. So you can actually load it onto, especially in this remote work environment, you can put it on your desktop computer at work, you can put it on your laptop, and then you can put the applications on your phone, because all of these applications work on your mobile device, and then you've got 2 others that you can put them on for each user. So again, you know, a few different licensing levels, and the licensing definitely goes on from there, but that's kind of a conversation for another day. Just remember that this is really where you can maximize your ROI with these things, because it's more than just Word and Excel. That's kind of what I'm going to jump into next. So wanted to ask, how many of you are using, this was our another poll, how many of you are using some sort of cloud hosted file sharing now? And this is another one of these polls that's yes, no, and I don't know. But cloud-hosted file sharing would be something like either Dropbox or G Suite or OneDrive or SharePoint, any of those, because this is obviously something that's been coming along and we've had access to it for quite a while. And now that we're in this kind of next phase of remote work, it really is a huge benefit to be using something like this. Because in the past, what you would have, okay, yeah, so about half of you are using some sort of cloud-hosted file sharing, and the rest are either no and I don't know. But so I just jumping into this really quick, the SharePoint and OneDrive and all of that can be a little bit intimidating at first. So on the left, you'll see that's our internal SharePoint, and that's viewing it on the web. And that can be a little bit intimidating if you haven't seen this kind of thing before. But I think it's really important for you to realize that we can integrate that with your existing Windows File Explorer. And I just wanted to show that so that folks aren't too intimidated by having another platform. It really integrates into your computer and allows you to do all the same kind of file sharing that you were doing before that you can do now with all of this remote. And if in the past you've used an on-premise server that you've had to access, you've either had to be in the office or you have to have a terminal server set up or a VPN to get in, and those can break. You eliminate all of that when you use 365 for file sharing. And so I'm just going to move on a little bit into the collaboration. And this is really where the rubber hits the road, because SharePoint and OneDrive form the basis of 365 file sharing and all of the file storage. But, kind of where this all comes together is in a place like Teams, and where you can get your remote workforce working together, managing employees, and making sure that you're able to access the information that you need to access, and then provide that real-time feedback, work together, communicate, kind of just hitting those same bullet points over and over again, and having this in a single place. The one pane of glass is really the key to this stuff. And so what I'm showing you here is Microsoft Teams. So you may have seen Teams before, or you may have thought of Slack. You may have heard of Slack, or you've used an instant messenger. And I did want to ask how many folks are using, if we have that, I think I said that would be a quick poll we'd do, is how many folks are using some sort of IM, Teams, Slack, something where you communicate in real time within the organization. I'd just be curious to know. And so again, while we're answering this, Teams is not just communication, and it's not, well, let me put it a different way. It's not just chat. And I think that's where folks probably are going to be pretty amazed at what you can do with Teams, because Teams is one of those things that sort of seems like it's just okay, that's another chat feature. I already got Slack. Why would I go to, okay, so it looks like some folks, actually only about a third of you are using something like this. And so I'm going to try to talk about the benefits of why this is so, so important, what you can get out of it. It varies across organizations. But so what you can see here is that Teams, sure, it's a chat feature, but it organizes the entire organization into different teams. So you can see on the left side of the screen, and this is just a screen grab of our existing Teams organization. We do have chat that we can do over there. And that's just one-to-one or one-to-many chat. So I can call up Dave or Sheila, and I can just text them a message and say, hey, what are you doing? Hey, do you want to talk about this now? What's going on? But we can also have it broken down into teams. And so that's what you're seeing here, where we have all of our different teams in the organization have their own basically channel in here. So we can do different kinds of communication in there. I can throw a message out to purchasing and say, hey, do you have that information that we talked about? And this is where, the ability to communicate remotely, it doesn't matter where you are. We can do all of this in here. And then I think it's also really important to remember that we can share, to talk about the fact that we can share files in here. So I can share documents, I can share pictures, I can do whatever I've got on my computer or stored in the cloud, I can share on here. And then all of that information is actually accessible. You see that files over there on the side. And that information is all accessible in one place, so you're not going to a bunch of different spots that it can be such a headache. And then we've also got our calendar, and that calendar syncs with Outlook. So in the 365 environment, again, you're back to that one pane of glass. You've got one place to look for all of this stuff, and that's what's so impressive about it and what's so kind of exciting. And the other thing that is very important to mention here is for the same price of all the licensing that we've talked about already, you've got access to video and calling, voice calling. And so we can do video meetings in here. In fact, Univision, we hold all of our meetings in Teams, and that can accommodate up to, I think a regular meeting can accommodate up to 250 users, and then you can do live events that would be similar to a Zoom event that you can hold up to 10,000 people. So that can all be done in Teams, and up to 250 people in a meeting, it's the same price for the licensing we already talked about. And everyone in your organization that has even that basic licensing has access to this. And that's really, really important and impressive. And then Teams, like I said, it's not just the communication and the collaboration, it's also about managing your workforce. So what I'm showing you here is two different screen grabs from our teams. So in our business development department, we've got our team set up. And if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see all those headers there. You see posts, files, mind matrix, home, marketing playbook, daily huddle, auto task. So I can access everything, including websites. What you're looking at there is a screen grab of our CRM, our customer relationship management software, that I can go into directly in Teams. And so if I'm working in Teams already and I have a question, I can pull up that tab. And I think one of the major benefits to think about here is bringing on new employees. When you're bringing on a new employee in this remote environment, especially if they're not going to be working in the office and you can't be over their shoulder all the time, you want to have everything for them laid out. And so you can literally present, you can hand somebody a laptop, take this home to your remote office, sign into Teams, sign in one place, and you're going to have all of this information at your fingertips. And then until, of course, then this opens up in the web, and I can use that. If you see that little icon up in the top that looks like a globe, if you click there, it'll take you to the web. It'll open your browser and pull up whatever screen you're looking at. And so that is just really quick way. I mean, the fastest point from A to B to getting somebody new started in your organization is getting them set up with Teams like this and getting all of this organized in a place so that, again, you have it at the single pane of glass, and reduces the noise, it reduces the confusion, and it reduces expense effectively. And again, all of this is available for those low-cost licenses. And then at the bottom of the screen, what you're going to see is another feature of 365, which is called Planner. And now Planner is similar to Trello, you may have heard of before. And this is a way to organize your meetings and your departments into tasks and the task buckets. And so I'm not going to go too much into detail there, but essentially you can have different headings. So we open this up every day in our business development morning huddle, and we talk about open discussion. We talk about all these different cards, and we can share information in there. And that's a really great way to share. Communication isn't just about saying, hi, how are you? It's about sharing information and sharing it in a place where everybody knows where they're getting it from. And all of these task cards also notify you via Outlook. So everything that we're talking about really coordinates with your Outlook calendar. And so you'll get notifications if somebody puts something new in one of those cards. You'll hear about it. They don't need to tell you, hey, you got to go look. I just uploaded information. And each one of those cards allows you to put links, files, comments about what's going on, issues that you're having in a place. So this really allows you to manage your remote workforce and train your remote workforce remotely. You don't all have to be in the same place, and you can get this information efficiently back and forth. And I just wanted to show you a little bit breakdown of that planner. Planner really has some pretty incredible features, and it allows you, you can see that this is about tracking tasks, and ultimately you need to have accountability in your organization. And you're able to track these tasks down at the bottom. You can see it'll actually tell you how many tasks you have left, who's got tasks that aren't completed, are completed, in progress. And again, every time you assign one of these task cards to somebody, you can actually you set deadlines. And so this really allows you, so if you have a project going on and you have multiple people working on multiple portions of this project, you can have all of those be a different task card in a bucket, and then each one of those can have a different or the same deadline. You're going to receive notifications, and the people who are working on those pieces of that project are going to receive notifications about when that deadline is coming up. And so you can track how close you are, so that when that deadline hits, and everybody can have everything done at the same time, so that you can then move on to the next phase or finalize the project. And so it just gives you really nice visuals. Also, that's kind of what you're seeing at the bottom of the screen, is to say, I've got all this work going on and all these people that are scattered all over the place. How the heck do I contain that all in one place? Well, 365 and Teams is really the spot to do that. And this is like the future of the remote work environment. And Univision can enable this and can assist with setting up Teams templates and setting up this environment, and it doesn't have to break the bank. Again, the licensing is super affordable. And so that's really, I mean, ultimately you can get all of this information in one place, and it's secure. And I guess this next card I just threw up there because that's what it looks like inside of a task card. And again, this stuff syncs to calendars and makes it really easy to get to. So I see we're approaching 9. I think that would probably be a good place for me to pull back a little bit and see if there are some questions. Jen, do you want to jump in? Do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, hi Steve. That was really, really good. There's so much there. I think as we wait for some folks to add some questions, I have one of my own. What do you do if you're a business that, when we all suddenly overnight or within no more than 7 days went to going from a office-based work environment to remote, and now we're back, but some, are kind of flexing back and forth depending on who goes into quarantine.
Right.
And gets that call. What do you do when maybe you're a business and you've gone ahead and picked up these different packages, like you're using Trello, you're using Zoom, you're using Asana for your project management. You've got you've got Slack, right? And you start to get folks who get used to those platforms, but you're really having all of these different channels and think none of them talk to each other. So how do you go ahead and convert maybe an office that's using all these different products into something where you already have these maybe, or you're thinking about getting them? What's that process like?
So that is a good question, and it definitely is going to be different depending on who is, where all of your information is. But basically, a company like Univision can assist in the migration of that information into one platform. So if somebody wants to move into the 365 platform, and we do this on a very, very regular basis, even before the pandemic, this was the trend that folks were migrating into 365. Like they had their email hosted in GoDaddy, and they had their Dropbox over here, and all of that information just gets migrated in. And so that just comes down to basically projects of getting that all done. And we work really hand in hand with the company to make sure, whoever that is, that we're getting everything where they want it, and then trying to reduce their expense. So oftentimes a lot of that stuff is really manual. Email's a little trickier, but file sharing, for instance, we'll set up the skeleton environment for you, and then you can have your employees do the drag and drop of all the files, because you don't need to pay us as a consultant to do that kind of work that you're capable of doing yourself. Because we look to, Univision really plays the long game, and I think that's one of the keys to our success, is that it's not about selling the most. It's about creating long-term partner relationships where people want to come back and work with us and work as a team together with Univision. And so when you have all that, whatever we can do to help folks reduce expense, and sometimes that's going to be using us because that is going to be the most efficient way. And then sometimes that's going to be using some of their staff to do that work. So it is an involved process, but we're going to sit down, we're going to have a discovery phase. We're going to say, where is everything? Essentially, how do you want to structure this? We can set up the structure, and then for some of it, you can be responsible for moving
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, I guess it depends on just how big your organization is too, and
it. Yeah,
how many, different programs you're using. We do
we've
have.
we've done these where it's been, for a 10-person organization, we're done in a week. And, we've done these for 150-person organizations, and that can be a 6-month process because you have 9 different departments.
Okay. Well, good. We have another question here. It says, how secure is the cloud storage? Working in a law firm, confidentiality is key. We need to make sure our files are secure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And it was something, if we had time, I had slides prepared to go. So I'll actually kind of go there with this. So cloud hosted file storage, like everything, is quite secure, but you do need to have protocols in place to ensure that your employees aren't opening up doors for folks to get in, because passwords are only as strong as the password. That can always be hacked. So one of the things we're pushing really big is multi-factor authentication. You've probably heard of this. This is where not only are you entering a password, but you're going to get a push notification to your phone that is a 6 or 8 digit code that you're going to need to punch in. Now, that's not every time that you have to access another email, you have to do that. It's when you open the program, and that confirms that you're the person entering the password. So even if your password is stolen or you were hacked, if you have MFA set up, they cannot get your information. And the other thing for law firms, there is a level of licensing that's called enterprise licensing with Microsoft, and that is archiving and secured data, and there's secured data hold. So really, for law firms, that is a level of licensing to consider, but you have the same level of security. It's really all about your passwords and then using multi-factor authentication to make sure that someone can't hack your password. And the other thing to really consider, and I'll just throw this out there now and not get into too much detail, is the social engineering aspect of this is huge now. So that's email hacking and phishing. You've probably heard of the PHI phishing. And so for folks that have secure data needs, and really anyone is a good candidate for this at this point, there are phishing training platforms which not only train you, but then continue to basically try to get your employees to stay on their toes. I mean, I didn't want to say to get them to slip up, but it actually sends you fake phishing emails, and then you get reports on who your employees, whether they open them or not, and then that'll kick them back into, okay, you need to do that training again. Because if I sit you down for a training on email security, it's out the window in a month. And how many emails do we click on every day? And you just see it come through. Oh, Jen sent me another email from Kalispell Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to click on it. And then all of a sudden you've opened this gateway to information being compromised. So that kind of stuff needs to be a continuous process. I can tell you that there's a great platform that we work with, and it's about $2 per user per month. And it's really comprehensive, and it's one of the global leaders.
That's really interesting. I actually didn't know that there was software that could train you. I'm typically the person in our organization that people say, is this real?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's good to know. We have another question here about Microsoft Teams saying
Sure.
Microsoft Teams can be overwhelming for some people on our team. What do you suggest on how to start with baby steps to ensure success?
Sure. I think, it does have to be an organization-wide effort. Everybody has to be bought into it. I think reducing the number of teams that you have is a good way to start. And so that it's just chat and a few teams where you're putting that information and keeping it simple. And then if I had to read into that, I'd guess that that person is also talking about notifications, because how many notifications are we all getting these days that makes it like so hard to block that noise out and say, like, what do I actually need to be listening to? And so you need to set those notification settings, and that's really easy in Teams. Under each channel, you can set how you get a notification. So, you know, for me, like, I don't need to get a notification every time that Tech Team 3 sends a message, and because that's not pertinent to me. If one of those people needs me, they know how to reach me in the chat, and then I get a notification. So I would say customizing and setting those notification settings, and you can do that, I believe, on the global scale, meaning for your whole organization, you can set that. So if somebody's feeling overwhelmed, like, you can deploy teams so that those notifications are already preset. And then I would say using the buckets properly, like the different teams properly, like, don't make every communication be in the public channel, right? Like, because how do you keep up with that stuff? If it's just a one-to-one, go to that person. But if it's an announcement, put it there. There is another nice feature, not to overwhelm too much, called Yammer. And Yammer is sort of it is a Microsoft product. It's actually been around for years. It's gone up and down in use, but we're seeing more and more use of it, and we're using it now. And it's sort of a social media platform for your company. So it's a great place for people to not only share kind of what they're doing outside of work and kind of get that noise out of Teams, but it's a good place for folks to actually, we can put our town halls there when we're going to have like a monthly meeting. So announcements like that stay out of the Teams chatter. And so you can actually, you may have seen it when I had that screen share up, but you can actually drop Yammer on the side of Teams, so that it's accessible right there as well. I mean, you can go to it on the web, but you can get it right there. So it's just another way to silo, like, those notifications and all of that information that's kind of hitting everybody all at one time.
Okay. Well, good. We have another question too about Teams, saying in the past, Teams was not easy to use to chat with people outside the company who were also using Teams. Is it easier now to use Teams to chat with out-of-company contacts? At this time, we use Teams internally, but Slack for external communication. So they're running Teams, but then they're also running Slack, kind of channeling internal and external, but is there a better solution?
You do need to add someone as a guest to Teams, but you can have those guest users in Teams, and we can show you how to set that up most appropriately. I mean, that's the short answer, is that I don't know what they've experienced in the past. I do understand that, and we have seen other folks doing that, where it's like Slack, you can kind of just bring everybody in. With Teams, it's definitely also a security thing, because you want to make sure that those guests only have access to certain information and certain teams, but you can add them as guests. I hope that answers the question. It may not be 100% what you want to hear, but.
Okay. Well, good. I guess one other quick question I have is, and I don't think we've touched on this. We talked about, there's Slack, there's Asana, there, for project management, the Trello, which is like virtual sticky notes, is how I refer to them. But what about if you're using, what's the difference between 365 and then, say, Google Docs, Google Drive?
Sure.
And using that, what's the difference between the two?
So, on the surface, they seem there's sort of some overlap, right? Like Google Doc, Word, I can write a document. The richness of the feature set in Word and Excel versus Google Docs and Google Sheets is just so much more. Like, there's so much more that you can do. There's so much more, we're talking like fonts and formatting. So people who are working in a professional environment that want to create professional looking documents, I mean, I think that's one of the game changers, like one of the big differences, not game changers, but one of the real differentiators for the Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Um, so for folks that are kind of straddling that divide and they've been using those things, they have to ask themselves if they want that professional level, and the richness of the feature set in Word and Excel. And then do you want to have that all in one place? If you're going to be doing that in Word, do you then want to also bring all your file sharing in from all these disparate things that you may be using and get it into that Teams, that SharePoint, OneDrive environment? So they're all competitors out there. Folks are using a variety of tools. Obviously, that's kind of the nature of this. But I think that when it boils down, if you're going to be using the Office products at all in 365, and you want to have like the depth of experience and like all of those features to create those professional level documents. And then Excel, I mean, if you're using Excel for real database stuff, I mean, it blows Google Sheets out of the water. Google Sheets are nice, they're simple and they can be shared, but I'm going to pitch, Excel also has an online, and so does Word. So you can do that kind of thing where you can share in real time. You can see somebody else working in a different cell, and that's available for that $5 a month license as well.
Okay. Well, that is good to know. I think there's just one last question
Sure.
before we wrap up. Someone else had asked a question about the security around going to the cloud. For businesses that maybe have had a traditional server environment, the thought of maybe putting, even though maybe personally we do a lot in the cloud, but putting all of those eggs of all of our content
Absolutely.
for a business completely in the cloud, is there still a need to do like a local backup, or do you use your current server to back up that? Like, just for folks that maybe are thinking, what happens if the cloud, something happens to the cloud, or we know occasionally we have had in the Valley, it's not frequently, but every now and then there have been some challenges with the internet.
Internet access, yeah.
Exactly. So how do you address that? What are your all's thoughts?
So internet access is one thing that is unfortunately out of all of our hands. So I can't touch that and tell you I've got a great solution. I mean, if you're a full uptime business, like, a big distributor where you got to have 2 internet connections that aren't running over the same pipe. And that is something to note, that oftentimes different internet providers may be renting the same pipe. And that has been an issue in the Flathead before, from what I understand, is that even though they're different service providers, they may be heading out over the same backbone. So that's one thing to think about. And then you can do, to mitigate that, there is also the option of having a backup 4G connection. So you can kick your firewall, kick over to the cell tower. What we've noticed though, is that when that happens, everybody's doing that. And so don't expect that you're going to still be able to do live Teams meetings over that connection, for instance. As far as backup goes, that's also a really good question and something I didn't have time to get into, but I consider backup to be an element of security. You don't, like you said, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. And if it's in the cloud, so Microsoft, your stuff is saved on 3 different servers, but those 3 servers are in the same data center. So if something were to happen there, then you do want to make sure that you're backing up all of your data. And so that's something that we really encourage, cloud to cloud backup. So just because if you've got in any service, so that's Google or Microsoft or anything like Dropbox, like you should be doing a cloud to cloud backup service. And as an add-on, rough cost, you're looking at about $5 a user a month. So it's pretty efficient. The other thing I will stress is that backup shouldn't be looked at as just disaster recovery. It can be used as a tool, because whether someone accidentally deletes something or maliciously deletes some information, or you're hacked, or you get ransomware where they encrypt all of your data, you can actually tell that guy to go fly a kite, because you've got a version from last week that's all available if you've been backing up your cloud data, let alone your on-premise data. So, and then it can be used as a tool, just in the sense that, like I said, you can go back and get versions. Almost all of the cloud-to-cloud backup is you get dailies for a week, and then you get weeklies for a month, and then you get monthlies for a year, and so forth, and then basically like a yearly back as far as you can go. So backup is really, it's security, and it's also, I guess I want to say it's a tool, not just a fire hose, right? It's not just that emergency ripcord. It should be looked at as a tool, and cloud-to-cloud backup is really important. So anybody who, whether you've got on-premise or cloud.
That is good. Wow, that's really good. I learned a lot. So,
Well, I hope
yeah,
everyone else did too.
thank you so much, Steve. And Steve, if folks have questions, further questions for you outside of today's webinar, how do they contact you to get answers to those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can email me at steveh@univisioncomputers.com. That's pretty easy. And then, our phone number is 406-721-8876. And they can just ask for the business development department. And then I also wanted to just throw out there that for anyone attending, we're happy to do about an hour, just a consultation to talk about what you're using right now and what would be some recommendations that we could kind of bring you into alignment with the stuff that we've been talking about, and see where that roadmap needs to take you. That's something we're happy to do for anybody here, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. This has really been, I think, very enlightening and really helpful, especially I think for a lot of us who maybe aren't necessarily the IT department of our businesses, but maybe are the, oftentimes maybe the folks who are the conduit to those, or just looking for the solutions for the rest of our teams and for ourselves on how to operate in a more flexible way and not always be tethered straight to the office or the PC that's on our desktop. So we really appreciate your presentation today. And again, for everyone attending, we will send you the slides, and this has been recorded. So we'll have this up on the Kalispell Chamber YouTube channel here within a day or two. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Steve directly with any of your computer questions. And if you have any chamber questions, you can reach us here. My direct line is 406-758-2806 or j.cronk@kalispellchamber.com. Thank you so much, Steve, for being with us today. And thank you to all of you for attending. And we'll see you on the next Thinking Thursday. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you all.